Welcome to the Deal Champs podcast. I'm your co-host, Stratton Brown, aka Strat Daddy. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. While we're here, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. Today we have the godfather of wholesaling on, my man Vic. But before we dive into him, I'll give a quick intro. Captain America will give himself a quick intro, and then Vic will give him a quick intro. My name's Stratton Brown. We've built two separate, different 7-figure companies using solely virtual assistants. We own some storage facilities. And my goal and Dean's goal and every guest that comes on here is to bring you as much value as possible that you can go implement in your life and business and make more money and make your life better. Now we have the Captain America, Dean Rogers.
What's up, guys? Your other co-host here. I transitioned from the NFL to then corporate to then real estate. Been investing in real estate for 10 plus years now in Central California. Done over 600 deals. Have a rental portfolio of almost $10 million and coaching students through the wholesaling playbook, how they can get started and get their business going. You guys can always connect with me at deanrogers.com.
And then we have the godfather of wholesaling, the man who I've seen at every event that I've ever gone to, Mr. Vic Heredia. How you doing, Vic?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Good to see you. It's been a long time.
I know I haven't seen you in like a year.
Yeah, for sure. Been a while.
But bro, give us a quick 30,000-foot view about how you got into business, because I don't think a lot of people know you were a produce broker, weren't you? Or you were selling bananas?
Yeah, produce salesman. Yeah, my family in Mexico. My cousin. He was a big banana farmer, organic banana farmer. Big company in Mexico. Almost over 2,000 employees. So worked with
Wow.
them for 20 years. So that really helped. Honestly, helped me succeed in real estate. I just learned a lot from him. He was a great mentor. Um, and so did that. But then I started seeing guys making good money in real estate. But I always had the entrepreneurial spirit. Um, once the GM told me, like, we already know your style of working, Vic. Like, I wouldn't say I was difficult, but I had my way of seeing things, and it was tough to be an employee at times, but at the same time, I did produce for the company, and I had a great relationship with everyone there. But when you're building a business, it's always a challenge. There might be some um, different points of view. And then also too, I realized, like, or just seeing how successful my cousin was, and his two brothers, all my cousins, and the quality of life they had, and the impact they had on other people, the impact on their families. So I wanted to have the same impact for my family and my circle, right? So that was really my goal. It was about money, but it was more about changing my life, impacting my family and friends, and just having a better quality of life. That's, to me, that's what it was about.
What was your biggest takeaway from working for such a large company?
Um, it's about delegation and relationships. That's what I really learned. It's like delegation and relationships, but also too is going where the money's at. So, like, we focused on large clients. So it was always supermarkets. They're the when it comes to produce, they're the top of the food chain. Like, they're the ones buying all the volume. Those are the guys that are buying truckloads, hundreds of truckloads a month of product. So I realized, if you want to do well in any business, you want to go where the big boys at, and that's what I did in real estate, and so that really helped as well.
And what exactly about delegation? Because I think you can delegate wrong, and I've delegated wrong.
Um, I just, well, even now, honestly, I don't delegate as well as I should, to be honest with you. But I saw that a lot of it was just delegation. Like my cousin, every Monday he would get all his business reports, and he would call for every, I think, I don't know, maybe 18 offices, I forget. For every division or office, he would call the GM, have a conversation like, hey, I'm looking at these numbers, what's going on here? Then he would call the salesperson, then he would go on to the next company, and then he would just communicate with all his people. And it was usually, like, three people running the company or that office, and then they had all of their employees underneath. So he was a master delegator. He was great delegating to other people. So just, I think that's the key. I mean, you can't, and if you look at any large company, you can't have a large successful company, as a one-man show. It's just not going to happen. But sometimes too, you get into the mindset, if I want to do it right, I got to do it myself. And eventually, yeah, but you can only do so much. You can only do this much. You can't really grow something big if you're trying to do everything yourself. So that was a huge learning lesson. And even to today, I still work on that, and I'm working on that more and more. So I'm trying to build out our companies as much as we can.
Bro, have you heard the Banana Man podcast?
I haven't.
On
No,
Founders,
no.
about the first banana
What's
salesman
that?
in the world. It is the most fascinating podcast I've ever heard. It's a dude who was like around with like Rockefeller and Carnegie, and he essentially started the largest trades of produce in the world at that
Yeah,
time. And when
it's a
he was
crazy
like
story.
70 years old, he was
Yeah.
still down like in Panama or whatever, like harvesting bananas. Like
Yeah.
it is a crazy story. It's the
Huh.
best entrepreneur podcast I've ever heard in my life.
Well, I think
On
it
a
was.
solo entrepreneur.
I think they wrote a book on it. It's The Fish That Ate the Whale.
Yeah. Because his
And
last name, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, and he actually, I think he's the one that started Chiquita Banana, and it kind of tells this story. I think, well, it was United Fruit Company,
Yeah, it was United
and then
Fruit.
United Fruit, and dude, they were like a government. Like they ran everything in Central America. That they ran it. It was like a government, you could say. And then they became Chiquita Banana, and then over time it goes on. They lost their influence. It was just crazy. It's a crazy story. I agree. Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
It's
So
amazing. If you guys haven't, it's on the Founders podcast, The Fish That
I'll
Ate
check
the
it
Whale.
out. You said the Banana Man.
Yeah, me and Kalani listened to it on the way home from like one of our storage facilities, and she was like, "That was epic." His life story is insane.
Yeah, actually, it was funny. My cousin told me read this book, and it's the fish that ate the whale. Yeah,
Bananas.
yeah, that's crazy. That's
No
cool.
pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did. I sold bananas. So like I was saying, you're talking about delegation. I think the big key is you have to have more faith in your people, but you have to hire good people. It's kind of like when we do a disc test, right? Like for salespeople, we want a high D and a high I because we know that's going to be a good salesperson. For someone that is more in the administrative role, they have to have really good follow up, which most salespeople don't, right? So it's knowing how to identify those key people and put them in those key positions.
I was curious when you said you noticed that in that past life that you needed to go where the big dogs were. How did that translate for real estate? What did you do specifically to say, I'm going to go where the big dogs are in real estate?
Yeah. So just to touch on the produce side, we went to supermarkets, and then eventually I called on Whole Foods and Walmart for multiple years. Like, and they wouldn't give us the time of day, but I knew eventually, they're the big guys, right? Eventually their supplier is going to drop the ball, or they're going to have a supply issue, or something was going to happen, and it was going to be our opportunity to get in the door. And that's what happened. I was able to get locked in with Walmart. Actually, I opened up the doors to Costco as well, which they still do business with. So Walmart, Costco, Whole Foods. So I think I was pretty instrumental in securing those accounts. But also because I saw like that's what my cousin did, right? That's what they did. So we kind of focused on that. And it was a team effort. You can't do it all by yourself, but I was persistent in the calls and the emails, right? So then what I realized, like, okay, well, who's buying all the real estate in the U.S.? Like, how can I apply that to me? Like, go where the money's at, right? So that's what I did. So I started pursuing these big buyers, these funds that at the time owned 40,000 properties. I'm like, let me go after these guys, and that's what we did. So that's how I transitioned it. So I think in any business, you have to look at like who's like the big guy in the industry and try to retain them as a client. I think that's the key.
Where did you find all the funds? Because you were one of the first people to start doing it.
Yeah, what's interesting story. So I had heard about them, right? And I tried to actively engage with them, but then I bought a property in Austin, and I looked up, the buyers in the area, and I found one buyer in Austin, and when I clicked on him, I think he owned, I don't know if it was 23,000 property at that time, 23,000 or 33,000 properties. I'm like, whoa, like who are these guys, right?
Yeah.
So then I reached out to them, and they didn't give me the time of day. And so I called on them again. I'm like, you know what? Just what I did with Whole Foods and Walmart, I'm going to do it with these guys because they got so many properties. So I reached out to them for 3 months straight. Like every week, I would call and email, and I was persistent, didn't quit. Because at that time, like really few people were doing business with those buyers, but we knew they were buying. So they're like, hey, you've been reaching out to us. This is the guy that you want to talk to. His name is Joe. He was one of their main buyers. It just so happened he was in Arizona, in my city. So I called him, and and we just hit it off. It just so happened that where I live, where my house is at, his family used to own that farmland.
Oh.
And so we just clicked. We kind of became friends. Started doing a lot of business. Started submitting a lot of deals, and that's how that developed. Which was Amherst, as everybody knows. So yeah, I think I was one of the first guys. Maybe not the first, but one of the first few guys to start doing business with Amherst. And then also what I did every time we had a conversation. He would mention his competitors. I was like writing that information down. I would look them up. I would Google them and then reach out to them directly and say, hey, you know what? So I used to backtrack. I used to own a produce business on my own when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And what we would do, you guys hear me okay? Oh, perfect. What we would do is we would reach out to like restaurants in the area, and we would try to get the most exclusive high-end restaurant in the area, because then what we would do, we could go to another restaurant and say, oh yeah, we do business with so-and-so.
Yeah. Right.
And so what would happen is they're like, oh, you do business with so-and-so restaurant? And we're like, yeah, that's one of our accounts. And so all of a sudden, you got credibility and they're more open to doing business with you, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I would call, ResiCap or whoever, any other fund, like, oh yeah, we do a lot of business with Amherst. They're like, oh really? Okay, cool. And then so next, you know what I mean? So that gives you instant credibility. So I did that as well. So that was a big factor also.
Bro. So how much were they paying over market? Because they're not really buying now.
Correct.
And were you doing, when you were selling to them, were you actually pitting them against each other? Like, because they buy a little bit different, right?
Yeah. Well, I always saw them as my clients. I always wanted to maintain that relationship with them. So I wouldn't say I pinned them against each other. I don't want to use that language with them because they're going to start buying again, right? They're going to come back eventually. So, but I would submit it to all of them. We would submit to 15 different funds, 16 different funds at a time, and just go kind of with the best offer. And then of course they do inspection. So we did cherry pick. That's kind of how we work. So we try to look for the best offer. I mean, some deals, honestly, like everyone says that they used to buy super well. They did 100%. But on some deals, like they come back with a really strong, concession because of the quality or the condition of the property. So it varied. But normally, I think we were selling properties at on average 88 to 90% of value, which is pretty good. There was some times that I was able to sell property at 105% of value. And then I think our best deal on a single family home was $113,000, which is a good rip, right? For not doing any work. That's a nice rip. So they were paying well. I think they're going to come back. Maybe I don't think they'll pay as like what they used to, unless the cap rate is amazing. But they were paying pretty well.
So what was that experience like working with them? Because I know in Central California where I do my deals, I've worked with hedge funds that work here. There's usually one or two that really does deals in Central California. I've got experience working with them, know what that's like, first name basis type stuff. So I have my experience, but with my experience, it was more of them being another cash buyer that was strong, you knew would perform. It wasn't so much of just give them this retail market, retail value deal and they'll take it. What was that like for you when you went through your process of analyzing deals? Were you just doing that many more deals because you could, or like what was your process during
Well,
their
it was
heyday?
based on market. Like I know who you're talking about in California. So yeah, they're a very strong buyer, but I also know they buy at a substantial discount. So I know who they are. I don't know if you want to say, but yeah, I know who they are. So we never really did business with them in California because I knew they were gonna buy a little bit less than other guys. And but also too, California has a really strong tenant laws. Like they really protect the tenants. A lot of these funds don't buy in California. So we're focusing on the Sun Belt, or where they wanted to buy properties at, where they wanted to own, renters markets that it's good for the tenant to make money on the rent. That's kind of what they focus on. So that's what we focus on. But also too, you get to a point where they give you their buy box. They're like, hey, this is what we want. These are our best market. And I would ask them, hey, what's the best market? Like, where do you want properties at? They're like, hey, right now we're strong in Kansas City. So then we would hit Kansas City. Or they're like, hey, like we're really strong right now. We like Atlanta, and then we go to Atlanta. So it was more based upon what they were telling us.
Mm.
Were you going super deep? Because we started some hedge fund marketing, and I think I actually got this from you, Vic. Troy's like, nope, they want 3 ones built after 1985. They want them on this side of the road in this zip code. Were you going that deep with your marketing?
We weren't going that deep. So that started to happen more on the tail end of the hedge fund era. But initially it was just city, and then it was 3 bed, 1 bath, 1950 or 1960 plus 1,000 square feet, and that's all they looked at. As the market started to get a little bit more difficult, I guess you could say, then they started to really really tighten. Now there is a fund right now where they do tell me, hey Vic, these are the zip codes we like, and so we're actually going to start targeting those zip codes. I have a pending meeting with them, but I still don't know how aggressive their offers are right now. But yeah, they some of them do go into the zip codes, 100%.
Bro, so looking back at it, how could you have known to actually like quadruple down and go take out a line of credit to do more deals?
Um,
Like, how could you have like saw that? Because I've made that mistake and I've told this a ton. We got a 68x return on our marketing
yeah,
when we were doing the stuff that we were talking about beforehand, and it
yeah,
only lasted us 3 months.
yeah,
And I should have gone and I should have chopped off my arm and
yeah,
sold it and got $10 million, right?
yeah. Well, like they say, hindsight is always 2020, right? So I do regret not buying a ton more rentals because I had the capital available. I have a capital partner that would have put up the money. But now when interest rates are at 7%, it's hard to cash flow rentals, right? Unless you get them really dirt cheap. But also he's like, well, hey Vic, I don't want to buy right now as a rental because I think there's going to be a lot of deals this year, which I think that's going to happen. So yeah, I agree. I wish I done that, but at the same time, when you got a property you can make $30,000 on, or you can rent it with 400 a month cash flow, you're going to take the $30,000, right? But in hindsight, knowing that, well, shoot, I could always, we didn't know the market was going to keep skyrocketing. We had no idea, right? Had I known that, like had you known that, then yeah, you buy it, you let the value go up, and then you refi the property and you cash out, and that's tax free. You could say,
Yeah.
yeah, we all should have done more of that, and 100% agree. But you don't know. Also, too, one key factor that I wish I known years ago, and I think it's critical for economics in general, is when interest rates are low, assets climb. When interest rates are high, assets fall. So right now, are interest rates high compared to the 70s? No, but compared to a couple of years ago, they are. So I do think if we hit a correction in the stock market, I think they will drop interest rates, and then assets will start to climb, and I think that'll be the time to buy.
What do you
Not
think is going to happen in the next year, like personally?
I think there'll be a stock market correction, and that will affect interest rates. And then I think that'll be the time the hedge funds start buying again, and everyone else starts buying again. And at that point, I think we should, we need cash flow, right? We have expenses, we have staff. I think what we need to do is maybe at that point, when that happens, when we see interest rates drop again, I think 50% of our deals we should sell wholesale or hotel, and then 50% we should hold. That's my thoughts. I mean, there's a lot of guys right now that are still buying hold guys, right? But for me, I rather buy a deal, in a year from now, at a bigger discount.
Exactly. It's when do you think that hedge funds are actually going to start buying? Do you think they'll all come back overall with because like they all essentially just shut down overnight?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. I was gonna, so I do hard money loans now. I had one guy send me a deal. They wanted me to fund it in Jackson, Mississippi, and so I saw that it was 27 houses that the guy locked it up for $1 million, and he sold it for $1.5 million, just like that. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I think they are buying, but they're very selective on markets. They're buying at a much deeper discount. So there's still opportunities. It's not like before. And from what I'm seeing, from guys I'm talking to, they're looking for markets where the rents are still high in comparison to the purchase price. So, and I think you might see some guys on IG, hey, I'm buying in Mississippi or whatever, these markets that aren't as expensive because the rents are so high in comparison to the purchase price. So I think that's one factor that we should take into consideration. But yeah, they're still not buying like they used to because the cost of capital is too high. Interest rates are too high. Before, interest rates were at 3%. It was almost like free money because they're getting money at 3% and they're getting a 5 cap. They're making a great return. So it made financial sense. Now it doesn't make as much sense.
When did you start doing hard money loans and why? And how do you do that nationwide? I just feel like I'm not smart enough to do that.
Yeah. So, well, actually, it was a relationship. So here's another tip. Like hedge funds was one thing, right? But also too, I always knew it's all about relationships, and it's also like associating with the big guys, right? So I came across a guy that was buying a lot of my deals, and so I looked him up, and he had like 1,200 properties. And so I called them and I go, hey, you know what? I've noticed you've been buying a lot of my properties, that they were being co-wholesaled or they were being like dispoed, etc. I said, we've been selling you quite a few deals. I like to send them directly to you if you're open to that. He's like, yeah, sure. And I said, well, hey, listen, I'm not too far from you. I'm in Phoenix. Why don't I drive down? Yeah, we'll have lunch. Just get to know each other better. He's like, yeah, come on down. And the guy owned 1,200 properties, right? And so as time went on, we started doing so many deals. He's like, hey Vic, why don't you do flips? I'm like, it's just a pain, this and that. And so but I started to do flips. And he's like, hey man, if you have friends of yours that that want hard money loans, you can offer my money because he's a hard money lender. I'm like, okay. So I kind of got into it by accident. It wasn't that I was looking for it, but he's like, hey Vic, why don't you do this? I'm like, cool. So now that's what we do. So a lot of my friends, if they need a hard money loan, I just like, hey, here's what I need. Let's get it done. So that's kind of what we do. So that's kind of nice as well.
So you handle that whole process. So you jump in, you gather their information, you process it, and take care of it like that. Is that a
Yeah,
pretty good business?
it's kind of like I'm the underwriter, and the reason is like because at first I had some friends that I just referred to him, and they're like, "Yo, man, he's not getting back to me," and it's because dude, 1,200 properties. I think at one point they were doing 35 flips a month, so you can
Mm.
imagine how busy they are. So, but we're friends now, so like we're really good. We're not best friends, but we're good friends now, right? So if I send him an email, he's gonna look at it because he knows if I send him something, it's gonna be a deal. So yeah, so I just say, hey, I need this, and this. Send it to him via email along with pictures. I send it in, they review it, and they say, you know what, I'll lend this or I'll lend that, and then I get back to my friends and get it done. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's nice extra money, but it's also nice helping out my friends that need to get funded for deals as well.
And are you making money in two ways? Are you making money on points and a rate, or how are you doing that?
Just it's on the front end on the points.
Do you think you could get away with doing both, or no?
If it was my own money, yeah, but it's his money, so he's not going to give away the rate. That's where he makes his juice, right? That's kind of what what really feeds him.
Really?
So
But you couldn't. And these we'll just use crazy numbers. If he's charging 20%, you don't think you could charge 22% and get it done? Because I know people who
yes,
do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's possible. I mean, I haven't had that conversation with him, but you gave me a good idea. So the thing is, too, there's not a so a couple of things. One, we're a lot more selective on deals because I get a lot of guys send us deals, and they're like, "Man, that's too tight. It's too risky." So he had a lot of guys walk away. Like he had one guy walk on 15 properties. Like one guy.
What?
Yeah, well, that was like last year, right? Last year when the market really
Wow.
took a tank, he walked on 15 properties, and he's like, "Vic, that's just one guy." So he's a lot more selective. So what when I underwrite deals, basically I'm like, if would I buy this deal? If I would buy it, then we could fund it. It's funny. There's a friend of mine sent me a deal. He's like, "Hey Vic, can you buy this deal?" I was gonna buy it. I didn't get it back to him fast enough, and then I finally called him like a day later or 2 days later. I go, "Hey, do you still have that deal?" He's like, "No, I already sold it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then the following day, another friend says, "Hey Vic, can you fund this deal?" It was the same deal. So it's kind of funny. So I
Yeah.
still make money on it, which is kind of nice. But that's not my primary business. But if the opportunity's there, then why not take advantage of it, right?
But how did he handle that person walking away on the 15? And where was it? That's what would freak me out about doing nationwide hard money loans.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was Kansas City. But yeah, that's why they started to really tighten up. It was in Kansas City, and he just walked on 15 properties. He was, I guess, the market shifted so much, he just was upside down, and so he just walked. Yeah. It happens. Of course, they took back the properties. The properties are then they're his. But now he has a hassle of
Yeah, now
trying
you
to
got to do
move.
something with it.
Now he's trying to move 15 properties, right? Imagine that. That's kind of stressful. And at the end of the day, hard money lenders, like, they want to make money on the
Money.
money. They don't want to do
Yeah.
flips. Now, luckily he does flips, so he has that capacity, the capability to do it. But the reality is he doesn't want to have to take on 15 properties and now do the flips himself. You know.
Dude, that's insane. I
Yeah.
can't. I couldn't walk away on 15. I couldn't
Yeah.
walk away on one of them.
Yeah, I think he didn't have a choice. I think the lender just didn't have a choice. He was just hard up for the money. I mean, I agree with you, but if it was me, I would have been negotiated and say, "Hey, listen, I'm stuck, on these 15, help me out. Let's see what we can do. Let's work out a deal." But some people just don't have integrity. We see that some guys don't have integrity. They don't have loyalty. A lot of guys are like that. They just see it. Oh, that's a money source, and they're willing to burn that source. It's like we know guys like they'll build a relationship with someone, and then they'll they'll disassociate themselves with that relationship, and they'll build another relationship and then another, and eventually, like, everyone figures out, oh, that guy's just transactional.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
guys eventually, everybody figures out who they are, right? So
And you're down in Phoenix, bro. Are you still like super involved with the community with all the
um
killers down there?
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we have a little local mastermind that we got Art Sanchez in it, Rafael Cortez, we got Sergio and um, AD Papas, and we got Zach Keeps in it. We got a bunch of guys in there. There's like, I think, 17 or 18 guys. Ryan Zolan, Austin Zabak, Brendan Gray. There's a pretty good chunk of guys just here in AZ. Max Jimenez, Bryant Aplas, which is Cody Sperber's business partner. So we got a little mess around, which is kind of cool. We all share ideas, which kind of helps.
How often do you guys get together?
Once a month. Once a
And
month.
how does that take place? Because we're setting up a local dinner here on Saturday, but our market isn't big enough to have 18 people in a monthly
Gotcha.
mastermind. So, like,
Gotcha.
where do you guys do it? Is it like at a restaurant, someone's
So
office?
we actually do it at Rafael Cortez. He has an office here in Phoenix. So we trade off. 1 month it's his place, and then the next month it's at Brian Aplis or Cody Sperber's office. So every month we go back and forth.
Well, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
pretty
pretty
cool.
cool. I mean, it's really cool because then it kind of makes the business more fun, because sometimes you get so bogged into the business there, it's like, oh my god, I don't have a life, right? So it's kind of cool to hang out, but also too, you're chatting and exchanging ideas, and then we all talk about challenges and wins. So if someone has an issue, like, we can all kind of chime in and give some advice. So it's pretty cool.
And bro, so now what are you doing for marketing now? Because we were talking about calling and how much harder it's gotten. What are you doing for marketing for your
We're
business?
still doing cold calling. We're doing texting. We're doing PPC. We do a
Oh,
little bit of mail. but not a lot. But honestly, I got friends of mine that do really well with mail, and so I'm going to start doing more of it. But primarily, it's cold calling, texting, and PPC.
Who
And
are
you're
you
still
using
doing
to
it nationwide?
For PPC, yes. Cold calling and texting, we're very niche on our markets.
Who are you using to text? Are you still using launch control?
Yeah, primarily launch control. Yeah, it's not as good as it used to be, as we know, but yeah, we're still using launch control.
No more roar?
No, unfortunately not. We used to use it. I mean, Ryan is a great guy, but it got to the point for whatever reason. I'm not, and we'll probably go back to him and see what we can do. But our cost per lead just shot up a lot. It might have just been us. I don't know if it's the company overall, but for us, our lead cost just shot up way too high. We couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't sustainable.
What's the trick right now with texting? Because I know when I was texting, it was increasingly becoming difficult with what you could text, what you couldn't text. I mean, what's your strategy right now? I'm getting spam texts. Like I literally got one while we're on the call right now, and it's like, hey Julie, are we still good for our hike tomorrow? Like I've been
Yeah,
getting these new creative spammy texts. Now that person's clearly trying to get me roped into something.
yeah,
I actually responded with thinking they were just making a mistake. Oh, you seem like a nice person. Oh, what's your name? We should become friends. And I'm like, all right, block. Like,
yeah.
but what is your guys' way to like hook into the conversation without saying, I want to buy your
Yeah.
house cash?
Well, the best way clearly is because if you have the first name, say, "Hey, John, how you doing today? How's it going?" Like we know that works, right? But I don't
Yeah.
do that because I don't want my guys or my girls to be replying to thousands of or hundreds of messages, random messages, right? So we just put it out there. Hey, you know what? I'm just reaching out just to see if you thought about selling your property in this city. That's what we do. It's not
It
as
doesn't
effective
block you
as
from selling or property or anything like that right now?
so we do get creative. So like the word property, the we use the number three instead of an e.
Oh, okay. You can do stuff like that.
We do get creative with that, and they're like, "Don't you know how to spell?" And then we're like, we do. We have to get creative with our text messaging. We're just honest. And if someone gives us an attitude, we're like, "Hey, listen, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I know it's kind of annoying, but we are real. We are looking to buy houses. So if you know someone's looking to sell, we're happy to talk to you." So we're just like very matter of fact, very very real, very straight. But yeah, I mean, is it delivering like it used to? No, no, for sure it's not. But are we still getting deals from it? Yeah, we're still getting deals from it.
And with your texting, is it just like how we were talking about with your calling, where it's all niche, essentially?
Yeah. So I think for like in this market, well, it depends. Like I know some guys that are doing really well, and if they have 30 callers, which I think there's few and far between guys that have 30 callers. But I think when you have 30 callers, then you need a lot of data, right? Very, very broad data. But if you only got one or two or three callers or five callers, you have to be niche. You have to be niche. We actually opened up a call center about a year ago, and I do have clients that they don't perform well. And I tell them like you got to be really niche on your data. Like that's why we do well. Like we're very niche on our data, but that data it's only available like it's limited, right? It's limited in each city. There's only so many foreclosures, so many inherited, so many probates, so many divorce, so many bankruptcy, so many absentee, out of state, high equity. There's only so much of that, right? But that's why what we do, and we advise everyone to hit that data in multiple markets. But some people I've talked to so many clients and they're like, no, I want to focus on my market. I'm like, oh, well, that's fine. I said, but the less leads you have, the less opportunities you're going to get, the less deals you're going to get. But I always advise people, if you're going to do cold calling, you want to hit niche data in multiple markets if you're able to.
So what's the secret to be able to do this in multiple markets? I know I get teased and tempted by people to go into multiple markets and do that. For me, I consider staying local better for me. I go deeper and wider in one market, but then I run into other people that are doing great in multiple markets. So what's your take on how you make that work?
Well, I know there's like I think Tiffany and Josh Hyde, they talk about like focusing, going deep on one market.
Yeah.
Or I think they're in two markets, and that does really well for them. And I think that does work. I think it does work. But it's more competitive. So like if I'm hitting foreclosures and inherited and probates and like a niche list, and if I only have 5,000 records, that's 5,000 opportunities. Why not go to 5 different markets and hit, now I got 25,000 opportunities. That's just the way I see it. That's always what's worked for us. That's what gives us, the leads that we were able to get. I mean, so it works for us. Now, is the other way a bad way? No, I do focus more so on Arizona because I'm here. So I got lenders here. I know a lot of the buyers here. I got really good relationships. I have agents. I have title companies. So yeah, I mean, it's good to go deep in your market, but that's why we always also work other markets as well. So I had a friend of mine. He tells me, "Hey Vic, they're kind of struggling with their business," and he goes, "Hey Vic, should we do this, or this?" He goes, "What do you think? Should I do A, B, or C?" I'm like, "Dude, do all of the above. Like, why A, B, or C? Like, why not all of them? Like, they're all going to work." So I think people get into this. Do I do this or do I do that? I'm like, do whatever works. If they both work, do both of them. So that's kind of the way I see it.
Who are your data providers for all those markets?
I get all my data from PropStream.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't go to like any county courthouses or anything?
No, I don't do that. I'm actually looking into that now, but no, I've never felt a need because every time I look at the property on PropStream, the information is accurate. All the mortgage information is correct. I've never had a need to really like go to those direct sources. Is it beneficial? 100%, 100%. But I mean, I just sometimes you have so much on your plate. I mean, I'm just going to hit the data I have really harder than anyone else. That's kind of what I focus on.
How many times are you guys calling your list before you think it's exhausted?
We don't stop calling it. So and
Even with the foreclosures, you're just like, fuck it, like.
Yeah, we just keep. Eventually, that they'll dead the lead, or eventually, they kind of fall off. But yeah, we don't stop because if it's a good list, I'm gonna continue to hit that list, right? I remember Sal Shakir. As we know, he's super smart. He was saying, like, honestly, like a list a year later, you only lose like 3% of the data is no longer valid. So
That's what I tell everybody. We don't really buy a ton of new data unless it's the niche stuff. Because like 3% changes, it doesn't matter.
There's not a lot of turnover. It's kind of crazy to think about, but at the same time, like if you have 100%, a whole piece of the pie, like how many people are actually moving? There's not that many people. So, talking about that, you've got this same set of data. Do you feel like that data gets tired and burnt out and you've got to move on to another market, or are you able to just keep hitting that same list?
Well, I hit the same list, but I'm always adding data too. I mean, I will add data. Like I get an idea, I'm like, oh, I got to hit this list or hit that list. So I'll add to it. But the reality is, like, the only difference between a good lead and a bad lead is timing. Like, if, for example, if it's an inherited property and it's absentee inherited, right? For example, at some point they're going to sell. At some point, I mean, it's a free house. Like, why wouldn't they? So if I'm calling them, this month, maybe they're not interested in selling, but something's going to happen, and a year from now they're open to selling. And then reality, like we're hitting high equity houses, or we're hitting owners that have owned the house for 15, 20 years. And as we all know, unfortunately, as we get older, we have issues, either health issues or situational issues. And at some point, you need cash. Like some shit's going to happen, right? So I know at some point that person's going to have to sell. So why would I stop calling it if I know it's a good list? That's kind of the way I see it. Everything is timing, right? So that's what I'm going to focus on.
And do you not use 80/20 REI or anything? Audantic in your area? Nothing?
No, I've talked to them, and they gave me a presentation, and I just felt I was able to figure out kind of what they're doing, and so I kind of like I said, I get really creative with my data, I got a lot of friends that I've kind of shown them how to pull list. So I get creative with my data, and I just try to be strategic. Like who's more likely to sell? Who's likely to sell? And so I saw like they did a presentation. They're like, hey, in this county, you got 47,000 potential buyers, and I pulled the data myself, and the numbers are very close. I'm like, well, it's kind of the same data, but also too, because I have the call center, I have seen the list that they say, and I don't want to say nothing negative about 80/20. All right, I know the data is really good, but I do get the list, so I could see like the columns, like what they're calling on. So I'm like, well, if they're calling on that data, why not pull it myself? Like, I mean, a lot of these companies are saying it's AI, but is there really an AI data company? I don't think so. I think it's predictive. Like they're able to figure out like who's likely to sell, but it's not some algorithm that's figuring out who has to sell. Now there might be some of these companies they're actually running ads nationwide, and they're maybe compiling, or Facebook ads, and they're compiling it to a list. That's possible, but I think the reality is they're just pulling this from other data companies. That's just my opinion. I mean, there's some data scientists out there that are super smart. That's a whole nother story, right? But I don't know how much of that 80/20 uses. I really couldn't tell you.
Vic, I gotta let you know. I gotta let you know this new data source that actually did hire a third party, like MIT type company, where they did take all of the data points that you're talking about that are available out there, looked historically what transactions sold that had similar, demographics and financial situations, and have applied AI to it. So that's something I'm actually going to be releasing here in like the next week. So I'll have to tell you about it. Have you test
Well, I was
drive
going
it.
to tell you, give me the name of that company. So,
Yeah.
no, I agree. Like, if you
I
can
think
do
we've
that,
talked about it, Vic.
what
I
was that?
believe me and you've talked about the company he's talking about
Gotcha.
because I tried them 2 years ago.
Gotcha. I mean, if you can do that, you can actually hire like an MIT scientist and actually integrate AI technology into it 100%. Like for example, like PPC, right? On PPC, I can upload a list of all the properties that I've sold, or that I bought and sold in the last 3-4 years, whatever it is, and you can upload it to Google, and you can run what is in it. It's a like audience, right? So you can do that with Google. So I know that the technology is out there. I just don't know how many companies actually can do that, because it's pretty expensive. That's not cheap, right? But I mean, if someone can really pull it off, I mean, that's great. I'd be happy to buy that.
What's your PPC like right now? Like, what takes up the majority of your ad spend? Is it cold calling still, then texting, then PPC?
I'd say it's PPC, and then cold calling, and then texting.
And your PPC is nationwide?
Yes.
Is it legitimately nationwide, or are you just going by major metros?
No, it's legitimately nationwide, but we remove counties that have a population under 25,000.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
But then, do you still get out of all those, how many of those are like rural that you can't do anything with?
We still get a lot of those, but it's a lot less than it used to be. It used to be really bad, but as soon as we removed those low population counties, it made a difference.
Because I know here in Central California, if you don't pull your data right, you'll get a bunch of mountain properties that nobody fucking wants.
Yeah.
And you'll get a bunch of leads for like cabins and random stuff that are worthless, and you can't make any money on them, and they just clog up your CRM.
Yeah. Well, you can make money on cabins. Like, it's funny. A friend of mine, Matt, that does really well with PPC, he's like, it's not the location, it's the motivation. So it really depends on how, you can sell a cabin if you get it cheap enough, right?
Yeah.
So it just depends on the motivation, really. So yeah,
And
but yeah, you'll get a lot of deals that aren't deals, but those are the ones you just got to get them at 40 cents on the dollar. So you can sell them at 50, 60 cents on the dollar. The more rural the area, the cheaper you got to get.
yeah,
For sure.
Yeah. Now, if there's no sales activity, that's a different story. Like, if there's no sales activity, forget about it. Like, no one's going to make it a deal. But as long as there's some sales activity, then it comes down to price.
And where are you finding those crazy buyers? Are you just going pulling tax records and seeing what you can get going?
So, well, the buyers, I mean, the first thing we do is investor lift, right? But also too, like, a really good tip that I give to people is, like, just enter the zip code in Zillow, and then you look at properties for rent. This is a little hack. You look at properties for rent in Zillow, and those are landlords. So if you got a deal in a zip code, just enter that zip code in Zillow, go to for rent, and then those people that are renting properties, those are all investors. So that's a little hack. I mean, it's a little bit of legwork, but that's a really good way of finding a buyer for a property in your zip code.
I like that.
I like that one a lot. That was a good one, Vic. Are you running all of your own marketing, or do you have a marketing manager?
No, I run on my own. So I mean, like we got a call center. I have two people that that do the text messaging. So we have a team. But as far as pulling the data and and that's I do that directly. I don't like to leave it to someone else, because I know a lot of there's companies out there, they have someone pull the list for them. But I think that's such an integral part of the business.
Yeah.
Like it starts with the data, right? Like I don't want to miss anything that I can make money on. So I'm going to pull the list myself.
And then, bro, talk about how much money you have spent on your education. Because I'm 1 year I saw you at like 4 events that I was at.
Yeah.
Like we were both going to all the same events.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. I've told the story before, but I don't know if I told you guys. So my cousin, like I said, he was very successful. Over 2,000 employees, close to 3,000 at peak season. And one time we were having steaks at Sheila's Steakhouse, and I asked him, I'm like, man, how did you do it? Like, how did you get to this level? I couldn't. You can't fathom that kind of success, right? It's hard to do, right? I mean, we know that, right? and and so I was waiting for like the magic answer. Like I was gonna get the formula, right? And he's like, you know what, Vic? He goes, I was humble. I was like, what? He goes, I was humble. He goes, I knew I didn't know everything. I knew there's things out there that I didn't know about the industry. So I sought out guys in my business that were doing well. Some better than me, some not, but they were doing well. I sought them out. I built relationships. I saw what they did, and then I started to ask them questions like, "How do you do this? And what do you do this?" And so I just reached out to all these people, and then I started taking those ideas from all these people, and then I made it my own. And then he became probably in the top 10 produce guys in all of Mexico, and now I mean, they're the unfortunately he did pass away, but now they're probably the largest independent organic banana farming company in the world. Like they're really big. So that worked, right? And so that's kind of what I did. And so Carlos Reyes, that we both know, he's like, dude, you go to everybody's event, because I wanted knowledge. I wanted to learn. I wanted to see what other people were doing that works for them. And then I added it to my tool chest, or toolbox. So that's what I did, and it did make a difference for 100%. Like as soon as you think you know everything, I forget about it. You're gonna go down the drain. I mean, pride is before the fall, right? So
Oh, yeah.
That's what I focused on. Just trying to learn as much as I can, and then taking all those ideas. I remember one time I went to one event, and I had the conversation I had at the bar with a guy was a game changer, right? There was another Rafael Vargas. My first event, it was $5,000. It was a lot of money for me at the time, right? And I told my wife, and she's like, "You should go." And so I went. Sure enough, what I learned there really like shifted my business. And then all in events, Carlos and Sal and Alex, their events, and just other events I went to, just that really is what made the difference in my business.
Yeah, I was going to add that as you find success and you get past and have kind of past the certain milestones of like, all right, I've made it, I've had success. It's crazy how you might go to an event and it's just one sentence that somebody says, or it's one small conversation that completely changes the trajectory, or it like reinforces the idea that you had, or it connects a dot. It's just so cool how that can happen. And I think it's just, you got to be at those events. You never know what you're going to learn or who you're going to meet.
Oh, totally. Agreed 100%. What it's funny, I went to Robert Wednesday with an investor that he invited me to a meetup. I met a guy there that does commercial, and we started chatting, we hit it off, and now we're going to start getting into commercial. If I hadn't gone to that event, if I had said, hey, Robert, I'm too busy, I'll catch you next time, I wouldn't have made that connection, right? And so now we're going to do a commercial. So yeah, it's all about connections and meeting the right people. But if you don't put yourself out there, you're never going to meet those people. So that's critical.
Bro, what I
Yeah,
like about you is
100%.
that you force opportunity. Is the best way I can put it. You really force opportunity.
I try to. No, 100%. Like, I got a friend of mine. This is I don't really tell people. I got a friend of mine that owns a steel mill in China, or he buys for 7 steel mills. So guy does really well. He has a house in Lake Como, like really wealthy guy. And so I'm always trying to force opportunities with him. And so we're working on a couple of things right now that are pretty exciting. But yeah, dude, I do force opportunity, and it's interesting you mentioned that. Have you seen the new Netflix documentary Arnold?
No, but I listened to a podcast about him, and he's another person on that
I did
founders
see that.
podcast. It's epic.
If
He's
you
epic,
really
bro.
if you analyze that documentary, like he was just good at analyzing opportunities.
Yeah,
Like
he
I have
was
a chance to
really
go to
good at it.
America, I'm there. I have a chance to work out with this person, I'm there. I have a chance, like that guy
Yeah.
sees opportunities like crazy. So that's the thing. You have to really seize opportunities as much as you can. There's been some guys that like they want to do real estate deals, or they want to work with me, and they'll send me a text and I'm like, hey, well, let's do this or that, and then they don't follow up. It's like, well, dude, you're not really hungry. Like if you're hungry, yeah, you'd be aggressive, right? So that's a big part of it. You got to seize opportunities, but you got to take action upon those opportunities. So no, I agree 100%. You got to force opportunities. 100% agree.
How do you do it without being pushy? Because you're not pushy, bro. Like you're one of the best friend makers I know.
Yeah, it's if I'm gonna approach someone and say, hey, listen, because I already know, like, what do they do? Like, what do they do, and what drives their business, right? So I'm be like, hey, this is what I do, and maybe by doing this, I can help your business as well. So it has to be a win-win for both parties. So like, I'm not gonna like, hey, can I pick your brain? Or hey, can I ask you a question? No, I'm like, hey, listen, this is what I do. I notice you do this. Maybe we could work together. I could bring you some opportunities. I could bring you some deals. Maybe we can make some money together. Like, it's always, you got to show the other person, how you're going to benefit them. Like, because I get a lot, and they're young people, so I understand. They're younger. They're like, hey, can I pick your brain, or can I get some advice from you? But rarely do I get the guy that tells me, hey, Vic, I know you do real estate. Like, bro, how can I find you deals and us make some money together? Like, you hardly, I
So
don't think I've
different.
ever had someone tell me that. But if someone tells you that, like, hey, man, how can we make money together? What can I do for us to make money together? Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Clear example, this guy that I met, the commercial guys. I said, listen, I got 10 guys. I got 7 guys hunting deals. Let me find some deals for you. Tell me where to point the guns. That's it. And he's like, cool. And that was it. That's all he took. Because why? I wasn't being Machiavellian, but I'm like, hey, dude, like, let's make some money together. This is what I have. It fits what you have, and we can make some money together. So you always got to show the benefit for the other party. Because if you're not, then like, why would they do business with you?
All you're doing is taking. Yeah. The way you position that, I love, because the first person, they're just saying, what can you do for me? Right. And you're in the position where you have what they want and they don't have what you want. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And vice versa. Like if you show up and you say, how can we make money? Just the way you said that, or what can I do for you so we can start doing deals, making money? So different. You're still seeking help. That same
Yeah.
person is asking Vic, how can I learn? But the second person is saying, how can I make you money while I learn?
Correct.
Like that's completely different.
And also too, it gives you insight into their thought process. Like, how does this guy think? He thinks like a hustler. He thinks like a businessman. Like the Bible says, out of abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? So like the more you listen to what people say, the more you get to know what's really on their mind and their heart, right? So if someone's always talking about, how can we do stuff together, then I know he's a team player. We're going to do stuff together. But if he's always asking for advice, always asking and asking and asking and not offering, then I know he's just a taker. right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, you have, I like to analyze what people say. As you get older, you start to realize, what they say tells you a lot, but you should look at what they do more than anything else. But what someone talks about all the time, if someone's always talking about money also, and that's all they talk about, then that's all they care about, right? So I think you have to really analyze what people say. But also too, with that being said, when I'm talking to someone or when I'm talking to a seller, I'm trying to think, what can I say? What can I inject into their mind so they have a positive thought about me, right? I try to be strategic with my communication as well. I think that's another part of it.
Yeah.
And what does your team look like now, Vic?
So right now we got 7 acquisition managers. We got a total of I think 12 people now.
What
That's
are
a
your
lot of
acquisition
acquisitions.
managers doing? Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. What are they doing?
They're pounding
how
those
many-
phones.
So yeah, we're pounding the phones. Also, our dead leads are not dead leads. That's just an old lead that needs to be worked. So we keep hitting them up. And then we
Do you
are.
have any KPIs or like gut feeling on how well the dead lead follow up works? Because I'll admit, we're not the best at our dead lead follow up. And I know there's deals in there because anytime we try to stir the pot up in there and call them back, sure enough, this person sold, that person sold. So
And
do
it's
you
irritating.
have like legit KPIs or gut feelings on, oh yeah, it's working, we're getting deals?
I don't have legit KPIs, but I do know for a fact it works because there's been deals
I need to hear
that
that.
one guy like couldn't lock it up, and then my other guy locked it up, and it was 3 contracts, and we made $50,000 on it in 1 month on 2 of the properties. So, like, it definitely makes a difference, And again, the biggest difference between a good lead and a bad lead is timing. Also, too, like I had one call with a client. She was complaining about a lead because we provide leads too, right, with our cold calling, and her lead manager sent me the recording of the call. She's like, "This lead is fake. This seller has no interest in selling. This is what I mean. These are the kind of leads you're sending us." So I listened to the recording, and sure enough, she's like, "Hey, sir, I'm calling. You talked to us. I'm calling to see if you're interested in selling your house." Like she was following up to qualify the lead, that's what lead managers do, right? The guy said, "No, I'm not interested," and he hung up on her. And I'm like, that's interesting. But I detected in her voice, she wasn't very friendly and very engaged and enthusiastic on the call. I'm like, okay. So then I called the seller. I go, "Hey, John, how are you? How you doing today? How's it going?" He's like, "Good, good." "Hey, listen, I'm calling because you talked to my assistant. And it looks like you were looking to sell your house. Is that correct?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And guess what? It was a complete 180. So a lot of times it's not about the lead, it's about your acquisition manager, or maybe your lead manager is burning those leads. Personally, I don't like sending leads to a lead manager. It goes to acquisition manager personally, because some lead managers just suck, right? So and also, what's a lead manager doing? A lead manager is not trying to close the deal. They're trying to qualify or disqualify that lead. That's what they're doing. So if you got a seller there, and for whatever reason she like pushes too hard and disqualifies it, I mean that might be a deal. For example, this guy, it was a 180. So a lot of times is just maybe your acquisition manager isn't the right fit for that seller, or the lead manager didn't do a good job. So we always try to, like, if they've said they wanted to sell at one time in their life in our system, we're going to keep calling until they finally say, "No, I sold. Please stop calling me. I never want to talk to you again." Then we'll stop calling. But other than that, we're going to keep calling them. So that's kind of what we focus on. And we're doing pretty good. I mean, it's been a little slow because, we're doing a lot of attorney effects, but we got like 50 properties under contract. That's a pretty decent amount of deals, So
What's attorney in fact? Sorry, dude.
like a novation. Novation, right,
yeah,
right
yeah.
to list the property on MLS.
Yeah. I was curious, what is your follow-up process? Like, what is that conversation like? What tips and tricks in terms of like the time of day, any little ninja strategies like Strat and I were talking, or no, one of my students and I, Dylan, were talking about like some cold calling strategies or follow-up strategies to call them twice in a row or even 3 times in a row just to make sure they know it's not a spam call. Little like follow, if they don't answer, hit them with a text and a voicemail, little things like that. Do you have any ninja strategies?
I think it's what you said, call twice in a row and then send a text. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best things to do. Also, too, like if you get a lead that's not answering, like, I'm like, hey, like I had the best success. So I built my business part-time. I was working from 7 to 4, 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. Then I'd go home and dial for 3-4 hours a night and then work Saturdays and Sundays. That's how I built my business. So I tell my guys, like sometimes the best times to work is in the evenings on the weekends. So if you need to get a deal, work in the evenings on the weekends. So that's a tip. Like sometimes, like if you want to work 9 to 5, like good luck. I mean, that's not the business we're in. I think like the best times to call is like at lunchtime, in the evenings, and the weekends. So I think that's another tip that people don't they just don't follow.
Exactly, bro. Vic, thank you so much for coming on. What are some parting words you have for the people?
Parting words? Well, I think it people that are watching, and if they want to get into real estate or they want to make money, like first and foremost, you have to see it in your mind to make it happen. Like I give the example because it's a great movie, everyone loves it, but it's like in the Matrix, Neo, like he didn't become Neo until he believed he was the one, right? Like you guys remember that? Like it wasn't until he believed he was the one that he actually became the one. It's the same with us. Like we're not going to achieve that level of success until we believe we can, or we have the capabilities and we believe we can do it. Like you have to have a strong belief first that you can make it happen before you make it happen. Because if you don't believe it's going to happen, you're not going to take the actions. You're not going to get the results. So I think the biggest thing, first and foremost, is you have to believe in yourself that you're capable of doing it or capable of figuring it out. And then after that, you got to get that knowledge and then take action upon it. I think those are the main factors.
I like that.
I love it. Great parting
Someone
words.
said, this was good. I agree.
Where can people find out more about you, Vic?
I'm usually, it's funny, I don't have Facebook on my phone. I'm usually on IG. So it's Vic.Heredia. That's the best way to reach me.
Sweet. All right, guys. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, go give Vic a follow, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.